sent him, there's a link on the front of the agenda, so he's just read it, so hopefully he'll get on.
Lovely.
Now streaming live on YouTube, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Overview Committee. Particularly warm welcome to Councillor Newman, who is attending her first Overview Committee. I hope you enjoy your time with us, Councillor Newman. If there's anything that you're unclear about, please sort of put your hand up and stop me, or give me a ring outside of the meeting if there's anything you'd like clarity on. But welcome, and I hope you enjoy the work here. I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you. Item 1 then is record of attendance. Elaine, would you like to take the register? Really, it's like being at school, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to make you aware that I've had apologies from Councillor Alex Hall and also Councillor Sarah Devereux, and Councillor McNally's substituting for Councillor Devereux today. So I'll just start with the roll call for the record of attendance. If you could just indicate whether you're present. Councillor
Present.
Councillor Sarah Devereux, an apology. Councillor Dick Edgington.
Present.
Councillor Alex Hall is an apology. Councillor Sandra Harrison. We have been made aware that she might be a little late joining because she'd had connection problems. Councillor Makinson Sanders.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Fiona Martin.
Present.
Councillor Helen Matthews.
Present.
Councillor Edward Mossop.
Present.
Councillor Claire Newman.
Present.
Councillor Sarah Parkin.
Morning.
Morning. Is Councillor McNally with us yet? No, he will be joining us shortly. That concludes the roll call. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is disclosure of interests, if any. Does anybody have anything they need to declare? Councillor Makinson Saunders.
Well, I think one of the KPIs looks at grants, and there were business grants, and my son did those.
Okay, so Councillor Parkin.
Yeah, again, because of the governance report, I'd like to declare him a trustee of Magnavita.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, and something becomes apparent during the course of the meeting, please declare. I've got Councillor Matthews now.
Morning, Chair. Just to say that I'm also a trustee of Magnavita.
Thank you very much. Item 3 then is minutes. Can I sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of September?
Yeah, I'll propose those.
Been proposed and seconded. All in favour? Anybody against? No, nobody's indicating against. I'll take that as carried. And item 4 is actions on page 23. We'll go down. Councillor Parkin and Councillor Matthews, can you take your hands down, please? Thank you. So, because we'll start again then on the actions. Page 23, we'll take it a page at a time. And if you wish to talk about anything, can you stop me or put your hand up, please? On page 23.
No, can I ask about 16A, the Economic Growth Team to send the relevant member details with information on where the shop local, stay safe, be kind merchandise can be obtained. I don't think I received anything of that, but then given that somebody's had an accident on one of them on the footpath in Lath, it's probably a good job we weren't pushing for it. So I just wondered if it actually been done, that was all.
Well, we chased it, didn't we, Elaine?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have sent 2 emails to the Economic Development team, and they have been read, but I haven't had a response as yet.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Chair, can I come in, please?
Yes, councillor Matthews.
Just that Adam Grist did get back to me. It was a question I asked about why hasn't the coast got these this merchandise, and was told that the bid would be promoting this scheme. But I have to say I've not seen it in any coastal towns at all, and it's just in the inland villages. So I'm a bit disappointed. I will be following up on that.
Okay, thank you.
You can have ours from Louth if you like, because they're a nuisance.
And
Thank you, Jill.
On 16B, we've got an item on the agenda. Councillor Grist has given us a written update at number 6 on 16B. Moving down 18, again, it's on the agenda, and Elaine did email out yesterday a link from Councillor Harrison to the report on the mental health hub. So you've had a link to that. It was quite a lot of paper,
Really?
so we thought it was better to send you the link to look at that if you wished to do so.
Did those actually come through, Fiona? Because I don't remember seeing that.
It came through
and
yesterday.
Well, there were problems with the emails yesterday, weren't there? So some of us aren't getting certain things that are coming through. I'll have another look, but I can't look now because we've got thingamajigs. We've got this on the screen.
I definitely got it, and I'm quite happy to forward it to you, Jill. If
okay, yeah, quite interesting. Thank you.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, I will forward that.
Thank
I'll
you.
write myself a note so I don't forget.
Right, myself.
Okay. Anything else on page 23? Page 24.
Yeah. Can I ask about 4? The one at the bottom of the page about sending out the guidance on risk assessments. I don't think that's been received at Louth. So I was just wondering if that had gone out as well. Because we've got some litter pickers who are out day in, day out in Louth. And I looked up the guidance myself and I asked Victoria to send me some. And they're not adhering to those rules, certainly, because they're picking up from roadsides and things. And according to the guidance, that doesn't tick the box. So I just wondered if it had gone out.
It does say that it's going to be included again in the e-newsletter to be circulated this month. So I guess that's not yet gone out, seeing as we're only on the 3rd of November today. So we'll check that that's going out again in the November newsletter, as it says on the bottom of the page there.
Well, it needs to go to the town councils and the parish councils, because these litter pickers in Louth are being part of a team that is part of a subgroup at Louth Town Council. So it does need to go to the town councils and things.
Yeah, well, it is the parish council's newsletter that it's been included in. So
yeah, right.
That will only go to
that will only go to them,
parish
won't
councils.
it? Yeah. Thank
you.
Sorry.
Anybody else on page 24? Page 25, the top of page 25, Councillor Mossop, Mr. Gilbert did send you an email that to update you on that. Do you want to comment on that at this stage?
Yeah, I saw the email, and thank you, Mr. Gilbert, for sending me that. I accept that the remuneration panel is something that has to be put on hold, but quite honestly, I can't really see why. It's a couple of Zoom meetings, and I would have thought we could have been able to do that, trying to keep business normalised as usual. But if it's going to be next year, it's going to be next year. Bit disappointed.
Thank you, but at least it's on people's radars.
Absolutely, that's what I want it to be.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and as it's still starred, it'll be an action that's kept on the action sheets for this meeting, so we can pursue that and make sure that in February it has been done.
Yeah, thank you.
Fiona, can I ask about 82, please? Something else. Yeah, something else that's really relevant. We've been getting a lot of complaints around here about the about delays to the ambulance service. There are people waiting for an ambulance 6-8 hours at the moment, and I was wondering if we could actually, if we're having somebody from the NHS to a reserved members day, we could get somebody from the ambulance service to come and speak to us as well. These are people who have got other problems. It's not. I think COVID is masking lots and lots of problems, but the ambulance service is really failing around here at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Elaine, do we know where Anne is at organising that reserved members day?
I did speak to her about it yesterday. We do have the lady's name. Sandra Harrison, Councillor Harrison, provided it to me back in February when the action was first put on. We do have topics, I understand, for the November and December Reserve Members Day. Anne said she was happy to follow it up. It's just, I think, because of COVID and you know, the feelings being that a lot of dental surgeries, I think, are even stopping routine checkups and what have you. We were going to look into it, and we didn't know what response we would have from them, but it is on a radar to follow up. Yeah.
So can we add the ambulance service to that?
Yes, I've made a note of that. Yeah.
Thank you. That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and perhaps when we get to item 7, you can ask Councillor Mrs. Harrison if there's been any
here by then.
Yeah, if she's here. She's not with us, I don't think, at the minute,
No.
as far as I can see. Anybody got anything else on page 25? 26? No. 27? No, that's the end then of the actions, which takes us to item 5, and we've got Councillor Fry and Mr. Sibley with us to talk about where we're at with the budget setting. So I'm not sure who's going first.
Fiona, sorry, I hate to interrupt at this point in time. Sorry, Adrian, I can see you chomping at the bit there. I understood, Fiona, that the position of the vice chair would be resolved this meeting, and I had a conversation with Craig yesterday, so I'm not entirely sure where that happens. So I just wanted to check.
Well,
whether it should be on the agenda. I don't know. I don't know what the process is.
We can't put it on the agenda unless the present incumbent resigns. As we've received no resignation, we can't put it on the agenda.
Right. That's the first time, Fiona, somebody's actually explained the process to me. So assume that will be in train for the next meeting. Craig said it could be resolved at this meeting, but something's gone wrong in terms of the process. So I do apologise for that.
Well, I did explain that to Councillor Leyland that was the that was the process.
I didn't quite get the same message, Fiona.
Okay.
Governance seems to elude most members of this council.
Okay, so that's why your hand's up, is it, Councillor Parkin? It's gone down again, so that's fine. Okay, so we're now on item 5, and Mr. Sibley and Councillor Fry, over to you, whoever's first.
Thanks, Chair. It's me. And you can call me Adrian, Fiona, it's fine.
Thank you.
Right, so what I'm going to try and do is bring up a PowerPoint presentation. So this could go wrong, just bear with me. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So I did send these out beforehand, so you should have had a copy of these, but they have changed slightly because we've had a new grant come in. So what I'm hoping to do this time, I've changed the format slightly from previously. So what I'm trying to do is give you a running commentary of where we started the year, what's changed during the course of the year, and where it leaves us for next year's budget. So I think there's been 4 major changes that have taken place during the course of the year, and I'd just like to talk to you about each one of them now. So the first one is the effect of Corona. So I just want to start, sorry, before I do that, I just want to start where we started this year. So previously at the start of the year, the key figure you've got there is that £1.3 million at the top. So we were saying that the budget gap for next year is £1.3 million. Now, those are quite scary figures, but that's a cumulative spending gap. So if we make that £1.3 million savings in our base budget, you've virtually cracked your finances moving forward. Now, I'm just going to
Adrian, can you flick these pages over? Because we've just still got the first page.
You should have a page that says previously reported position.
No, we've only got, it just says financial overview. It's just your first page at present. You need to go down the page or two. It's probably number 3 that you need to scroll down to.
Yeah,
I think Adrian, I think if you click top left from beginning, it just, and then you just click on your screen one at a time. Have you got top left from beginning on your screen, on your your ribbon?
Let me try again then. So, oh, it's all gone wrong.
Oh.
Right, let's try again.
Right.
Right.
I've got that page 1.
Yeah, on the top left, you've got from beginning. I
Yeah.
can see.
Yeah, I'm pressing that. Nothing's happening.
Press the next one then.
Has that
If you hit
come?
the-
That's
it.
come up.
You've
Okay.
pressed it.
Right. So what I wanted
Okay.
to do was just say this is where we started the year. So back in February time, this is what next year's budget was looking like. Then there's been 4 major changes during the course of the year, and I'm going to wrap them all up and show you what the summary position is now moving forward. So where we did start the year, has that page come up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. So we started off with a spending gap for next year's budget of £1.3 million. And thereafter, if you don't saving, you've got a gap every year thereafter. Now, the reason why you don't want to have that is because what you're saying is expenditures greater than income. And in order to bridge the gap, you've got to draw down reserves, which isn't a sustainable position. And those reserves should be spent on other things such as capital projects and other projects that you want going forward. So we just bear in mind, part of the year at £1.3 million, and I'll come back to that later on in the presentation. There's one key figure that you need to pick up from each page of the slide. So the first thing that's happened this year is that we've had Corona. Now, for those of you that recall, we previously reported a position of a £5 million pressure in this year's finances, of which we could offset 1.5 million of it through not doing repairs and maintenance and finding other savings, such as a vacancy saving and that type of thing. So we started with £3.5 million. We've since had 3 tranches of government support, and this is what was sent out into the paper to you. But if a week's a long time in politics, it seems an eternity in local government finance at the moment. So the day after I sent this presentation out to you, we received a 4th tranche of funding from the government of 1.023 million. We've also put in a income claim, loss of income claim for things like car parks and the caravan park of £750,000, which means if everything goes well, rather than have a £5 million deficit, we're actually £103,000 up on the year, which is quite astonishing, really, because we've actually, in theory, made money out of Corona. However, that's only for this year. What you have got also going forward is the pressures for council tax and business rates collection, which, because of how we account for it in the subsequent year. There will be a pressure coming in through into next year's budget. So that 120 and that 200 at the bottom, which totals 320, when I come to do the summary position, you'll see that come through as a pressure for next year. So the next thing that's happened this year is the delay of the Fair Funding Review. So what the Fair Funding Review is, I've talked about this in previous presentations. This is every government seems to can't help themselves but to try and change the way we get funding. And what they're trying to do is redistribute funding where the demand is most. It's almost an impossible task, but every government tries to do it. So what's generally likely to happen if you're districts and boroughs, funding is likely to be, this is all guesswork by the way, but this is the common consensus from Society of District Treasurers. So they think that there'll be a shift in funding from districts and boroughs to the unitaries and the county councils, because the demand and pressure on funds at the moment is in adult social care and children's services. So districts and boroughs lose out. So we'd previously built in a reduction in our funding of £1.6 million. If the government are deferring that for another year, which looks like they're going to do because of coronavirus, we're £1.6 million better off for next year, but it's only the year after it'll come back in again. We just think it's been delayed because of corona. However, I'm not likely to know this until the back end of November, early December, when the Chancellor does his emergency winter statement type thing. So the third thing that's happened is we've joined with Boston and we've formed an alliance. Now, you can see in year one, the costs of 729 are roughly offset by the savings so far of 670. So there's no effect this year. But next year, there's likely to be we had this target of £1.2 million, which we're at 1.1 million at the moment. So what happened with there is, because it's a 2/3, 1/3 split, of that £1.1 million, 726,000 of it will be a saving in next year's budget to East Lindsey, and you'll see that 726 come forward in a couple of slides' time as well. And finally, this is my summary of what I think are the pressures moving forward into the budget setting process for next year. So firstly, we had a pay award of 2.7% this year, where we were only budgeting for 2%, so that's an additional £100,000 that we'll have to incur. Magna Vitae is because there were transformational savings that we as a council were supposed to undertake, and I don't think we'll achieve those because of COVID. Also, I think there'll be pressures coming forward from Magna Vitae as well next year because of social distancing will stop their level of income. I'm not sure about the green waste anymore, because I think that's changed in the last 2 weeks. That may be off the agenda now, that may change. But also there's a couple of things there. Economic development posts weren't put in the budget in time for the budget setting last year, but they're in now. And the 200,000 is just my guess of the pressures that will arise during this year's budget process. So all in all, I see a £550,000 shift, which we can come back to on the next slide. So that puts us into a summary position. So if you remember at the start of this, I said we got a £1.3 million gap. And I remember these figures as you're going through. So from coronavirus, for council tax and business rates, we've got a further £320,000 pressure next year, but a deferral of the fair funding review reduces the pressure by 1.6 million. The alliance saving further reduces the pressures, and so on, to which I think we've now got a budget position next year of about a surplus of about £146,000. Now that may change, but what I'm saying to you in effect is that I don't think there's a big issue for next year's budget. The big caveat I'm going to put on that, and that's why it's in bold, is the delay in the fair funding effect, because that's what buys us another year. Now, if that doesn't take place, we have got a problem for next year and we're having to draw down on reserves. But I do expect that to be delayed. I'm also expecting that even if the fair funding review does take place, there's a good chance in the current climate that the government won't reduce funding to any council, because politically, I don't think that would be a favourable thing for them to do. However, I still think that there will be austerity moving forward. It seems to be something that my daughter was born with. I don't think she's ever known anything other than austerity, and she's 22 now. I do think for next year, we're okay for a budget position. It's the year after we need to worry, because there's pressures that will materialise not next year, but the year after. So that's it from me, Chair. I hope members have found that a little bit more interesting than going through a page of A4 like I have done for the last 2 times, and at least gives them a feel of how things have moved over the course of the year. And I'm happy to take questions, Chair, as soon as I can work out how to get out of this. Has that worked?
Yes.
Perfect. So that's me done, Chair.
You need to unmute, Fiona.
Sorry, I muted in order to cut the interference. Councillor Fry, sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. No. Adrian said it all. As far as I'm concerned, due to some surprising income tranches from government that were unexpected, we find ourselves in a very happy position, as Adrian quite rightly says. It is the following year when we have uncertainties about fairer funding, and whether or not that comes forward or not, we have to wait and see. But presently, we are about 2/3 of the way through our budget challenge process with the various service areas, and that's gone very well. Frankly, council at this point in time and under these circumstances is not really able to save very much money. So there is no wonderful changes in budgeting that is going to make a major difference to us. But it is vitally important that services are maintained and that service areas are able to maintain those services. So we are certainly not pressing down on them to make huge savings. Obviously, also, I'm looking very much forward to commercial activities and Invest East Lindsey to assist us with generating increases in our revenue fund and supporting the general fund. And that will continue to be the case. I'm very grateful to Council for voting for the loan for Invest East Lindsey so that we can buy the caravans. Obviously, that may be affected by what's the changes the government have introduced now, but in theory, it's for a month, and I don't think that that's going to affect the delivery of assets that we need to make money, which is first scheduled to happen on the 1st of March and the second tranche in July, and I'm talking about the vans now. And I think in overall terms, I'm slightly worried that we're in a reasonably good position, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Mossop, you were first.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Adrian, also for a very concise summary of where we are. I think that's been very helpful to just have it in headlines like that. So thank you for that, and also to Councillor Fry, who has that slight caveat of worry, and I would have the same as well in that sense. So one of the questions really I wanted to ask was what level of reduced income will trigger another budget review, because of course we're going into another lockdown in a couple of days' time, and that will presumably have some impact on reduced levels of income, car parking and such like. So I just wonder whether that is a factor that needs to be factored in currently, to see whether there is any more, whether we need to be even more prudent than we are. And the other question was about the ED posts, the economic development posts. I saw in the Q1 monitoring report that there was an overspend there, so I assume that those posts are actually in place. And could somebody remind me what they are for and how many people it is? It seems like there's quite a substantial boost to the ED department, which to my mind is very welcome. It's in line with our corporate strategy. So I just needed to know who the personnel were, and will we get to meet them? Very much.
Thank you. I've got quite a list of speakers, so I'll go down the list and then come back, Mr. Sibley and Councillor Fry, if that's okay. So Councillor McNally was next.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry being late as well. The loss of income claim for you said caravan parks and car parks. Is that loss of income claim something that the private sector would be able to claim for as well, or is it just public sector on the caravan parks? Are we got a much better advantage than a private sector enterprise?
Adrian, do you want to just answer that one?
Yes, well, I'll answer the first three if you wish, but I'll do Daniel's first. The loss of income claim is something that only local government authorities can claim. There's other avenues open to private businesses, such as there are grants that they can claim through which the local government are administrating. So I think it was 15,000 or 30,000 with the level of grants that they could claim. There's also rate relief that they can claim. They've also got the ability to furlough staff and all that type of thing. So there are various avenues in different sectors, but the loss of income is purely a local government scheme. And it's not just for caravan parks. The majority of it is things like lost car parking income because of lockdown, that type of thing. Other authorities, particularly where they've had leisure facilities where they've had to close, that type of lost income as well. In terms of how much loss of income would trigger another budget, well, there isn't a set limit for that. It's just it's just whatever we feel comfortable with. Because we're at this stage of the year, what I would suspect would happen is if we are into a position where we have a further loss of income, we would just report that through budget monitoring process and request that we can draw down those additional reserves rather than set another budget. It's a lot of effort just for 2 or 3 months of the year. I think that's how we deal with it. The other question was about the economic development. I think there was 3 posts, but they were introduced just after the budget. It might be 4, but I think it's 3. And it's Lydia's team, for those of you that know Lydia. So I'm sure, is it Lydia? I can't remember her surname now. Rustling. So that, and if you remember, they've done quite a lot this year and administered all the grants, the new towns fund applications and that type of thing. So that's the sort of stuff they've been working on. I think that answers the first 3 questions, Chair.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Parkin next.
Thank you. I think want to tie in very much to what Ed was saying, moving forward in terms of being really clear about our corporate strategy and what I think the number crunching itself is really important. Clearly it's the basis for moving forward, but what lies behind it is how we then prioritise our corporate strategy moving forward and what we feel are the best drivers for development within the district. I completely agree with Edward that economic development is going to be, it's always been crucial for East Lindsey, but I think it's even more so now. So again, moving forward beyond this year, it's about, we will have cost pressures again, and I think that it's really, really important that we bear in mind that corporate strategy and where we want to be heading and how we then get there. The other thing, Adrian, that I'm aware of, and I don't make any apology for asking this with my Magna Vita hat on and my East Lindsey hat on, is there is last week the government announced up to a national scheme of 100 million that local councils could apply for to support leisure centres, their own leisure centres. Is that something that we're actively pursuing? I've just got the link here.
Do you want me to speak, Chair?
Yeah. Do you want to pick that one up?
Yes, I think Magna Vita have been successful in securing funds already. I think it came through a couple of weeks ago. It's something like £200,000 or £300,000 they received.
249,000.
No, I'm aware of this. I've just got a separate article here about a specific fund just for leisure centres and for venues.
Well, if that's just come through, that's a new one on me. But we are meeting with Magna Vita this afternoon. So
brilliant! I'm sure they'll let you know then.
They may clarify that position. The position with Magna Vita this year was up until the Prime Minister announced the lockdown that they were expecting to break even this year. So there was no cost pressure to the council this year. Now, with lockdown for another month, I don't know if that changes things. Almost inevitably it will. And of that, I don't know what contingency measures Magna Vita will be able to implement. But again, that will be subject of conversation this afternoon. But it's not huge. It won't be a huge amount. But the problem with Magna Vitae isn't this year. I think it's next year, because next year they're still going to have social distancing. And I don't know what funding they'll get for that next year. So that's the big unknown, really. So I don't think the pressure is too much this year. It might be next year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously, we've worked hard as a board over the last few months in terms of getting to the position where we are now. But I agree, it is about moving forward with it. I mean, and it's the same within all aspects of the sector, whether it's local authority run or whether it's private sector. Gyms, fitness activities across the board are facing the same issue. So, the challenges are very, very real. And just as they are for the hospitality sector.
Great.
Thank you. Councillor Meckinson-Sanders.
Thank you. Given that we've got government money coming in for losses on car parking, is there any anything that we could find to be able to give, say, the market towns or even the coast as well, free car parking for the month of December to enable our businesses to have some chance? Because there's such a death knell for our local businesses, and I wondered if there was anything. I know this is the budget for next year, but I wonder if there was anything elastic in the in our accounts that we could actually find money to do that, because I've done a straw poll of businesses in my market town, and I know that is their number one priority. They're desperate for it. The best month they had was August, July and August, when we still had free car parking, and they're desperate for some help somewhere along the line. And the other thing I was going to ask about the extra jobs in ED, I thought we got a moratorium on employing people, because I know housing is very stretched, and I know environmental health is very stretched. And if one department is able to employ extra staff, I wondered how we were getting around it when I know that there's huge strains on other departments. Thank you.
Adrian, do you want to answer those?
Thank you. I'll do the second one first. The moratorium came in after COVID, and the economic development posts were agreed slightly after last year's budget. So they all came in before COVID took effect, and then COVID has created the moratorium. So it was just a question of timing.
It's a timing, yeah. Okay, thank you.
The interesting point you make there is about car parking income and about whether there's anything we can do here. So I'm going to sort of pass the buck a little bit to Richard, because it's more of a political question. But what I would say is, if you remember, I think it was slide 3 where I talked about the corona effect from this year. It appears that we're about £100,000 up on what we thought from the original budget because of the funding we've had. I don't know what that equates to. That's probably slightly less than a month's worth of car parking income, but it's an interesting idea that you put forward. I'm just going to pass the buck here over to Richard, because I think...
Do we have to kidnap Richard now to get it?
Well, no, I don't think so. It is a matter that's under discussion in Executive Board at the moment. Really, there's a lot of pressure, not least from Adam Grist and Steve Kirk, for us to provide business with this sort of support, given the problems that they're facing. So I can't tell you the answer to it, because it is still under discussion. I'm not personally in favour of it, that will surprise you, I'm sure. But I'm only one. But it is under discussion, and I suspect strongly that Exec Board will decide to promote the support for local businesses in respect of the way we operate our car parks.
Thank you very much, because I know they'd be really, really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Alison, did you want to come in on that one?
I just wanted to clarify that there isn't a 100% moratorium on appointments. There's just a sort of a more thorough process in terms of reviewing whether we need to recruit to vacant posts. And obviously we've got an opportunity now to look at where there's capacity to work with Boston as well on posts. So I just didn't want people thinking that there was a full-scale moratorium on recruitment. It's just much tighter.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Newman, you were next.
Thank you, Chair. Please accept my ignorance if this is a daft question, but you did say I was allowed to ask them.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that report, by the way. That was really interesting. But I just wanted to know, do all members get to see that report, or does it get sent out in a different format? Just out of curiosity.
Thank you. That's not a daft question at all. And it follows quite nicely to what I was going to ask, which is what's the process from here on in, and what's the wider council involvement, really. So Adrian, do you want to take that to start with?
Well, I can, but I'm going to rely on Elaine and Joanne's expertise as well at this point. I can tell you it's gone to lead members. It's gone to the cabinet as a briefing, almost similar to what I've just presented today. So it's also gone to overview and also go to audit and governance as well. Now, what I don't know is what then happens with these minutes, whether they're all circulated to members. So that's where I'll be relying on Elaine or Joanne to confirm.
Okay, Elaine?
Yes, sorry, Adrian, do you mean the minutes from this meeting?
Yes.
Well, they are published. So obviously when they've been agreed, they're published. So they are available for everybody to see. And then they are gathered for council. So they will go for all councillors to see as part of the council's agenda pack for the December meeting.
Okay.
I was going to suggest, Richard, if this was okay with you, that maybe those slides, that presentation was included in the members' point brief on Friday.
Fine with me.
Yeah, I think that would,
absolutely.
because it was such a good, concise presentation. I think everybody would benefit from seeing that. And what are the plans from here on in to include the rest of the council in the discussions and the debate, please?
There's no more specific plans other than go through the general budget process that we've got now. 3 or 4 people have requested an overview of where we are, such as the committees that I've just referred to and forums, which they've all had that. And then we'd just go through the normal budget process now, and that would just go through what it does in previous years as well. Got no specific plan to circulate this any further, but if you wish me to do so, members are agreeable, then I'm quite happy to present it to further groups. You just have to let me know which ones that you think would benefit.
Okay. I mean, I thought there was talk about at one stage about sort of a members' day, reserved members' day.
That's what I put my hand up for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the budget.
Right. There's a reserve members' day for the budget. There is every year, and if you wish for this year's reserve member day, I'll take those comments on board and do this presentation this year going forward.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Have we got a date then for that?
Not off the top of my head. I can circulate them after the meeting, but I haven't got them off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's just that the sooner people have dates, the more likely we are to have a good attendance.
Yeah.
In fact, Elaine, I don't know if you've got the dates for the reserve member days, have you?
I have. If you just bear with me, I'll look in the calendar. I believe
there's one later next week. I know.
Yeah.
There's one next week, and then there is one on the 8th of December.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know which.
I thought the one on the 8th of December was for budget setting. I thought the November, I can't remember what November's got on it, but I thought December one was the one for budget setting.
Okay.
If we could use the December one, because we'll be 90% through the budget process then, so we'll have a good idea of where we are.
Yeah, no, that would be good, because I think members have got those dates already. So thanks to Elaine. So if the December one's to be used for budget, then I think that works well.
Chairman, would it be possible to have? Would it be possible to have one of those briefings so that if people are at work, they can still access it? Because, you know, we always have them in the middle of the day, and it does actually cut some members out. And I just thought we used to do 2 of those in the past, I think.
Okay. Councillor McNally, you were next. And then I think Councillor Parkin, you've still got your hand up from last time. Councillor McNally.
Thank you. Thank you. Just going back to some of the points that's just been made about the presentation. I mean, if anyone does what you mean, you can put it on the members' point brief, but actually you can go onto the Edith Lindsay YouTube and watch the presentation, and then just email the questions rather than keep having presentation after presentation after presentation. It's actually there. You could say it's from 12 minutes in to 35 minutes, and that's it, done.
Yeah. Well, we can do that as well. We can tell people that that's where it is, because I take your point. It's better to see things live and have the commentary rather than just have the slides without the commentary.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I've got anybody else who wishes to speak on that. So thank you very much, Adrian and Richard. That's been extremely useful. If you wish to stay, you'll be very welcome, but we understand if you have other things you wish to do. Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chair.
Chair. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you. So we're now on to item 6, which is update on markets across the district. You've got a written report from Councillor Grist, which is what we asked for, on page 31 of the agenda. I don't know if anybody can answer this, but I did wonder how the announcement of lockdown on Thursday is going to affect our markets. I don't know if anybody's able to answer that, Alison, or not, but
We're still waiting for guidance from government. So at the moment, we've not had, other than the basics that have been sent out to the public, and a little bit of information around how councils might be required again to support clinically vulnerable. We've not really had any detailed advice yet. So we're hoping to get some at a local government conference. I think it's early afternoon today.
thank you. And presumably you'll let members know as soon as you know. Presumably, right. Councillor Meckinson-Saunders.
Thank you. Right. In the second sentence, it says footfall in market towns, however, continues to be relatively low. Obviously, people aren't going out and looking. I go out most days, and footfall isn't particularly low. And on the markets, certainly last week, it was absolutely buzzing. So I'm not sure that is correct, actually. And also, markets have the advantage that people don't have to go around masking up, and so it has attracted more people. I think that's what some of the market traders are telling me too. And operationally, the stalls located on the fish shambles have been reviewed and deemed safe to continue. They're not stalls on the fish shambles in Louth. They are an ice cream van, double glazing, and people selling cars. So they're not actually stalls. And I think a lot of people feel a bit resentful of the fact that is meant to be an open space, and people then are funneled through a tight little bit. So those are two bits I would take issue with in that report, really.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I agree with you. I've been in Horncastle Market. Well, I was there last Thursday and it was pouring with rain, so it wasn't buzzing particularly. But on good weather days, the markets have been busy in Horncastle. Yeah. And we've had more stalls on a Saturday in the last few weeks than we've had for a long while. So, Councillor Parkin, you were next.
Yeah, I agree. I think footfall is much better than I would have anticipated it being. It's really encouraging. I spent some time the other weekend talking to traders on the market who were really, really positive, both about the level of trade. Not so much to start with. I think it's taken a while to pick up. So I don't know if there's a bit of time delay on the report, potentially, but certainly in the last few weeks. And also not happy just about their trade, but also about the level of support that East Lindsey provided moving forward out of lockdown. I think I've said that before. I think it's such a difficult position now in terms of how we move forward. I'm sure, obviously awaiting government advice, but it's one of those situations where you're going to be damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because I should think that I, for one, appreciate the opportunity of being outside as much as possible for shopping including, and yet I can also understand why people would be concerned about the social distancing that we can manage. So I think it's probably really finely balanced issue moving forward, and one that we've only got a few days to make a judgment call on. So I do have every sympathy for the officers and the members who are having to make those judgment calls.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, we'll pass your comments, Councillor Meckinson-Saunders, back to the portfolio holder about the fish shambles.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I have to say, last Wednesday was, I think it was Wednesday, it was either Wednesday or Friday. They had lots of artists and people doing crafts and stuff, and the market was really, really buzzing, and it was a really nice atmosphere and lots of people buying, and it was nice. And what a shame we now have to probably call a halt to it.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, I mean, I think I would like to record thanks to Esther and her team for the hard work that they've put in with the markets, because I think they have worked very hard at trying to make them vibrant. If nobody else has anything on that report, we'll move on then to item 7, which is the Health Scrutiny Committee for Lincolnshire. And Councillor Mrs. Harrison kindly emailed out a report that came out the end of last week, which I have to say I always find her written reports extremely helpful and useful. Councillor Mrs. Harrison, are you with us? And are you able to, do you want to, I've got a blank screen for her. I'm not
She was
sure.
here a minute or two ago.
Yeah, but there's...
Councillor Martin, she seems to be on the phone, so I don't know if she's having difficulty with her connection.
No. Yeah, well, let's move on and hopefully come back. Elaine, you need to unmute. I think you're trying to tell us something.
Sorry, she's just in the background on the phone.
All right, okay. Right, well, I'm not sure. Right, we'll come back to it. We'll come back to you, Councillor Mrs. Harrison, and we'll go on to item 8, which is the updates and scrutiny and policy panels. Implementation of the Boston Borough Council and ELDC Strategic Alliance. Councillor Meckinson-Saunders, I think you're chairing this, and very helpfully Rebecca has given us an update on page 33. So
she's an absolute whiz, she is. She's, I can't praise her enough. We meet every Monday afternoon. We meet at 3:30 to discuss stuff, and then we take our witnesses from 4 o'clock onwards. We've just got Tim Leader left to do, in inverted commas, and then I should be able to write it up, and so it will hit the time scales. And thank you to Alison as well, because she's sitting there looking. But Alison's been a great help as well. So thank you very much indeed. It's going well. I'd just like to praise all the councillors who give their time up as well, because they've all been very, very diligent. So and we've always had more or less a full house at every meeting. So that's really good. So thank you very much indeed.
Yes, thank you. I'll echo those thanks, because to be meeting every week is quite a commitment, and the work you're doing is extremely good. So thank you very much for that. Anybody
Pleasure.
got any questions on that? No, we'll go back then to item 7. Councillor Harrison, are you with us now? You need to unmute, Sandra. Sandra, you're muted. That's better. No, you're off again. You're muted again. You're muted, Sandra. I'm not a co-host, so I can't unmute. Can you unmute her, Elaine? That's better. It keeps going on and off.
I think she's having some problems, Chairman. Sorry, apologies. I'm trying to ask her to unmute, but she's having some problems with the functions at the moment. I think she was intending to speak.
I think she's trying to speak, but...
here we go.
Can you hear me now, Chairman?
That's lovely. Yes, we can hear you now.
Sorry, I'm having a real bad morning, and I've not got all of the screen on that I should have, so it's going to be...
Dear.
But you've had the paper copy of my report.
Yeah, thank you.
Just a couple of extra things to mention. I hadn't spotted it really when I did my report. There's just a small reference in the last committee meeting at the scrutiny about dental services. Sorry, I'm trying to find it now. But not really any information, just that last time through COVID, the dentist did start working again, and in this it just says patients should be reassured that dentists have been trained and equipped to manage patients safely during lockdown. And then it says again, accessing urgent medical or dental care remains important, and that it should continue during another lockdown. So I hope that's accurate, because that's just in the chairman's update, not in the actual papers. And then Elaine very kindly sent the link to members about the mental health hub. I wondered if there was any more information anybody wanted about that. And then I'll take questions. And I'm sorry, I can't see myself on the screen because I've got another box in front of me.
That's fine. We can see you. That's fine. Thank you very much for that. A couple of issues that came up earlier in the meeting. One was the ambulance service, and I'm sure Councillor Meckinson Saunders will want to come back in a minute on that. Councillor Meckinson Saunders, do you want to come in now?
Yeah, yes, please, Sandra. If when you have the next meeting, there is a real problem with ambulance services in Louth. It's taking sometimes 6 hours plus to get to people who are in huge amounts of distress. And whilst we all understand C19 is bothersome, and I saw something on a newspaper headline this morning, it really is, you know, we do have other people who are ill besides people with COVID. And I've got some complaints. I can forward you a very disturbing thing that one of my residents sent me, and she was on the floor. A builder eventually took her to hospital. Somebody who slipped in the town recently, she had to be carted up to the hospital because they by somebody who found her fallen in the street when they slipped on one of our stay safe randals on the footpath. And people are just, you know, it's a real struggle because you can't have people left lying on footpaths for 3-4 hours. I was also going, it concerns me as well, because I saw this on the headlines this morning. Grimsby Hospital is really, really struggling. And unfortunately, the Lincolnshire health thing that you go to only really looks at Lincolnshire, but all our residents from the north of this district go up to Grimsby. I think it said they've got something like getting on for 140 staff off ill. And there's so many things aren't working. The wards are shut down, etc., etc. So I don't know how we find out what's happening in our neighbouring trusts, because it's a large chunk of our population. Cancer treatment is now, people are having to go from our area all the way down to Grantham to get their chemotherapy. I don't know why. We do have parts of Louth Hospital that could easily be isolated, and they were doing, I think the St Barnabas Hospice and so forth had a link up, and people were having chemotherapy at places like Louth. And it is one heck of a long way, and it's a really bad road to get down to Grantham to go for your chemotherapy when you're feeling pretty groggy at the best of times. So I don't know if there's anything we can look at to help resolve that. And finally, bereavement support is really lacking around here. I've got a resident who lost her daughter, who was under 30, to cancer in the summer, and trying to get some support. She can't, the doctor's busy, they don't have anybody in because of COVID, and they just stuff tablets down you. There's not really, I don't know if the mental health hub might pick some of that up, but it's a really difficult time for a lot of people dealing with some of these things. And so I just wondered if there was any way we could look at that as well. But they're all big problems with the NHS, I know, and we've got a massive problem with COVID. So that's my list, Sandra. Not much to go on there then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Harrison, do you want to come back on any of that?
I think the most helpful way would be for Jill to send me an email with all those details on.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Get them addressed. I would obviously have to write to the clerk of health scrutiny. I suspect we'll be very busy with all the reports coming in about the changes that may or may not be happening because of COVID. But of course,
that's the problem, isn't it?
Started to rise the numbers at the last meeting. I was expecting, Chairman, I'd have some queries about more about patient transport, but of course, you know, it's on the agenda for the scrutiny if anybody wants to read it more. But the one I thought would be the most quick responses was about the opening times through the winter of the Louth and Skegness urgent treatment centres.
Yeah.
So if anybody's got any information on that, you know, that's going to be an important item on the next agenda. So at the moment, I've never received any comments one way or the other, but I would like any if you have them, please.
Sandra, I've had a comment about that. I had some people come back to me. They had gone up to Grimsby A&E, been sent there from Louth last week, one evening, and it was mayhem. People, there were children running around. There was no guidance going on, and they said it was far too scary. And they came away again, and they had been directed up to Grimsby A&E from Louth. And I think it's yet again, you see, it's that county, it's the boundary, the health service boundary, isn't it? So I think Louth not being able to take people does have knock-on effects, doesn't it? So
well,
I agree with you. It's a challenge.
It is open in the day. What they're consulting on is
the hours,
closed 10 p.m. till 8 a.m. And at the moment, they're obviously hoping to keep those hours rather than expand it through the night. We haven't been given any statistics yet, so it's something else that I'm going to mention, that we ought to have statistics at the next scrutiny meeting, because how can we make a judgment if we don't know what the footfall was when it was open during the night?
Yeah, but Sandra, they're just diverting everybody up to Grimsby from Louth. They're saying, oh, we can't see them, and they go whatever time of day it is. So it's the figures are a bit false at the best of times.
Okay, I've got Councillor Parkin now.
You've kind of answered my question already, Sandra, because I was going to say that really before I made any comment, I was waiting for the stats, which I felt that we didn't have yet. So I was actually sat here thinking, have I missed something? But I think it's really hard without the data to actually make those judgment calls. I know that when I've gone to Louth with the children, that because we don't have a paediatrician in Louth, that is reason why so much of the footfall is sent through to Grimsby. But I have to say that the communication from Louth to Grimsby on the times when, you know, we've had quite acute situations like appendicitis and that kind of thing has actually been very, very good. And there wasn't there was one occasion where we had a huge delay because of waiting for transport, but actually it's not been too bad. But then I hear the soft intelligence that Jules referred to of people who have had really, really difficult situations. So the data is important, the soft intelligence is important, but also where I feel we always go amiss with these urgent treatment centres is getting the communication to the public about what they're there for and what they are not for. And I think if there's any feedback that I would take back to scrutiny about that, it's about a public awareness campaign about what they can rock up to Louth to have treated and what they can't, because I genuinely don't think people know, and I don't think that message comes across at all. And then finally, in terms of COVID, I read the article as well that Jill was referring to in about Grimsby, and the glimmer of optimism in that, because I'm trying desperately to find them everywhere, is that in fact, although they have a very high number of cases, they have fewer people in intensive care because of the new ways of treatment in terms of the oxygen treatment and medication. The good news in what is a bad news story is that fewer of those patients, much fewer of those patients, are ending up in ICU. So, as I say, yes, it's bleak and yes, it's difficult, but I think we need to counterbalance that, particularly in the public domain, with the fact that there's also some progress there as well in terms of treatment.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Harrison, do you want to come back at all?
Yes, as much as I can, Chairman, because it's a bit of a job. I've had to move tables. I've got paperwork all over now. But there was the item that I can't remember, it's one meeting or 2 meetings ago that I've fed back on, that now for queries about where to go, what, whatever treatment you need, the emphasis is to ring 111 or email to get the guidance as to where you go. I can't really give any more information about Grimsby because it's of course a different health authority.
That's the problem.
I certainly will mention, the query that people have raised about, do we really want to go to Grimsby in circumstances like we are at the moment? But I do think Lincolnshire's Trust has worked really, really hard to address the backlog with treatments that either stopped or people didn't attend for during COVID by making Grantham a green site. Of course, we may find out at the next meeting that that has changed, but at the moment, I do think that, they've done the utmost, and I think I did quote some figures in this time's report, the percentage of patients they're dealing with. And I do appreciate the distance, as they all do, but if it's the option of going somewhere where you're not going to be in contact, hopefully not going to be in contact with COVID patients, it would be my preference to go there anyway.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Sorry about the difficulties you've had with the IT. And thank you very much for your reports, Sandra, because they are extremely useful and it's helpful to have things written to help concentrate minds and know what sort of things you've been looking at beforehand. So we do appreciate the work you put into it. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks, Chairman. If members would send me the information that I've asked for, then I've got a little more ammunition to raise it.
Yeah.
Thank you
very much. Thank you. We'll move on then to item 8B, which is CCTV refurbishment working group. And again, Rebecca's put an update on page 35 as to where they're at with their work. I don't know if anybody here is actually on that working group. I think Councillor Meckinson-Saunders, you are. Do you want to make any comments?
There's a meeting on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock.
Excellent. So at our next meeting in December, we should have a draft report.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Hopefully.
Thank you. Anybody else got any comments or questions on that? If not, we'll move on to item 9 then, which is performance and governance framework. Elaine did send an email out asking for questions in advance if possible, so we could get answers to specific questions. We haven't had any, but we'll try as far as we can to answer anything that comes up this morning. Councillor McNally, you're first.
Not on this one. I put my hand up for the last one.
Oh, sorry, it didn't come through. Sorry, quite happy to go back to the last one.
Well, the last one is just a sort of comment around the sort of overall scrutiny thing now. And it's not a go at anyone or anything, but there seems to be this lack of timekeeping. And so it's, let's say it starts at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock. We blur the lines of, if we was at the office at Manby, we would probably finish at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and that would be it. But we seem to be stretching at times to 5:30, 6 o'clock. Now, that's absolutely fine for councillors because everything's blurred anyway in terms of time. But in terms of officers, you know, I just feel like, you know, you don't want to be pushing people the wrong way, if that makes sense. So I think it's just like a realization that actually other people have got their own lives to do. They have been working all day, and I think, you know, we need to sort of start setting a time limit on these things. That's all.
So, has there been a specific incidence then of meetings that have gone on for too long, or? I mean, there's obviously
don't get me wrong. They've all gone on for quite a long time. But what I'm saying is, I think there's been quite a few that have gone well past 5 o'clock. Okay. And I don't know the position that the officers are in, you know, because they can't say, "Oh, I'm off. That's it. I'm shutting down," or you know, it's difficult, but. I don't think I'd want it to become a permanent thing.
Some of our panels are designated evening panels to allow people who work during the day to participate.
Yeah, so, that's fine. I mean, as long as there's a differentiation between the afternoon and an evening, but at the minute, the afternoon seems to be going into the evening.
Okay, right. Well, we'll raise that point with the people who are chairing the panels, really. But I mean, most meetings an hour to an hour and a half should be absolutely ample, really, for panel meetings, unless there really is a lot of witnesses at one panel meeting. But we'll raise the point you've made. Sorry about that. I didn't notice your hand. It's trying to juggle everything at the same time. We're now on performance and governance framework then. As I say, we did ask for questions. We didn't get any in advance. We will try and answer anything that people want to ask today, but we may have to come back with some answers if we're not able to do that. Councillor Mossop, you're first. Can you sort of give us the page number that you're referring to, so that would be helpful?
Well, I was going to try and help sort of, because we haven't got any questions, I was going to see if you could actually take this in segments. You know, there's the performance overview, and then there's sort of the financial, which we've had some talk about anyway. Yeah. And then there's the element of risk. And my first sort of little load of questions, and I accept that Elaine does ask for questions in advance, but it's more of the moment to ask them in a committee meeting, to be frank, because I do read the agenda the night before, and you don't have possibly the time to look at those overnight. So it's just to keep the agenda, you know, fresh in my mind that I do that. That's just the way I work. So I apologise if I've got lots of questions now. In terms of the performance overview, maybe Alison can just explain what the KPI number of households with the main homeless duty actually means. I wasn't sure about that.
Which page is that on?
Sorry, this is on the overview, which is page 44. The overview, which actually is not telling us an awful lot at this stage because of all the issues we've got. But yeah, number of households with the main homeless duty, I just didn't quite understand what that KPI is going to tell us in the future. So maybe Alison can tell us about that. I also wondered about the process that you set these KPIs. I realised it's to do with the new strategy, and so you set new KPIs. I wondered whether there ought to be a KPI linking housing with improving equality. For example, the housing standards, particularly pertaining to chalets on the coast, which are permanent occupancy, I feel that there really needs to be a drive to improve those housing standards. It's the thought sands, as those with long memories and been here a long time will know what I'm talking about. So those are just the comments I've got on performance overview. And finally, on that, the overview of recycling and composting rate, 44.6. It would be interesting to see how year on year we've actually got worse on that than got better, because again, going back in the depths of history, you'll probably know that we were up at 60%. Mainly thanks to the drive that you did as an initiator of recycling, Fiona. So I'd just like some comments on that as well, and whether we're actually going to up the game on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at pages 43 to 52 at the minute. Councillor Mossop's suggestion that we're looking at performance first. I've got Councillor Makinson Saunders, then Alison, I'll come to you if that's okay, to try and answer some of those points as far as we can. So Councillor Makinson Saunders.
Thank you. Well, I was just a bit bemused by why we couldn't actually put something down for the number of businesses issued with grants to support recovery, because my son does that, and I expect he could just tell you it just like that. Plus the fact, there was another one, weight of household waste collected and those things are the non-recyclers. As you can't get into the wretched recycling centre to take stuff up, we haven't factored those in. It isn't just what you put at your garden gate, is it? And really, it's, you know, some of these, and the number of, a bit further down the page, number of business inquiries supported by the economic growth team, which results in a positive outcome. I didn't know they'd stopped doing it, so I would have thought we could have had some quite good statistics that showed how well this council was supporting business.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on that, you can get into the household waste recycling centre. There is spaces every day of the week.
No, there aren't, Danny. You can only take certain things on certain
days.
Okay,
Councillor. Let Councillor McNally finish, please.
It's not that easy.
But hang on. The additional green waste income on page 54, and I'm quite happy for someone to get back to me on this. Is that a average for like the year on year, or is that an increased income due to what's gone on and people not being able to move around? And I was going to ask that on the first one, because he was on about green waste, but if someone could just get back to me, I'm quite happy with that.
Okay, thank you. I've got nobody else wishing to speak. So Alison, do you want to try and answer some of those?
Yeah, the first one was a question around the homelessness duty.
Yeah.
Going to test me now on my knowledge of the housing legislation, which I'm not an expert on. But if you remember, I'm trying to think of timing wise, probably around about 18 months, 2 years ago, we had our the legislation around housing changed. And if you remember, there was lots of discussion around how we have a duty to deal with somebody who presents as homeless, even if they come from outside of the area. If you can remember all those discussions. But essentially, under homelessness legislation, we have a duty to respond to somebody who presents as homeless, and we have to deal with that within 56 days. And that process includes quite a detailed discussion with the person who presents. So that's what that relates to. So, excuse me, essentially it's a record of, in terms of under legislation, the number of people that we have to deal with, and whether we're able to identify alternative accommodation for them. But might be useful actually to get an update on how that legislation is working, because there's a lot of concern about the additional work that might create because of the in-depth interviews that you have to do with people. and the fact that we have to deal with people who don't necessarily live in our area. So I suggest Councillor Mossop, we could perhaps get somebody to come and give overview, a bit of an update on where we are with that process.
I'd be happy for that. Thank you, Alison, for that. I'd be happy for
Yeah.
that to happen if you could factor it into an agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do that. So,
on the KPIs, you asked about the process, I think, for setting KPIs. That there's a process whereby we talk to all managers about whether the KPIs are really the best KPIs for their service in terms of how they represent success or pressure, or I guess what the public would want to know in terms of delivering that service. And it's a real challenge for us every year. It's really difficult to come up with KPIs that really show how that service is doing and what the outcome is for the resident. And every year we think we've cracked it, and every year after a couple of months we think that's not quite right. Those KPIs are agreed with the portfolio holders as well that cover that particular area. We are having another look at it. I think I've kind of had another look at it for about the last 12 years, but we are having another look at it this year with a view to, we need some kind of database KPIs, but I think we're looking at more of a qualitative way of reporting from services. So where we've kind of got priority areas such as homelessness, yes, we kind of do need to provide you with the facts and figures, but we're thinking that there might be some way of giving more of a qualitative update on the either the successes or the challenges for that particular service. Now, it might mean that we can't do that for every single service in every single report, but we would hope, say, 6 monthly or a year, that there's something much more qualitative for every service, so that you can get a bit more of a feel for what the outcomes are for the residents. And Michelle Howard's the best one at describing this. And Michelle Howard's really keen on case studies, and she will reel off case studies about the fabulous outcomes that an intervention has resulted in. And it's kind of quite difficult to find a way to share that. So at the moment, we're having a look at how we do that better, because I think, well, we think as officers that members are probably more interested in that kind of feedback, but we probably think the public are obviously much more interested in that kind of feedback, and it's much more meaningful than a bar chart and a set of figures. So hopefully by the beginning of next year, I'll have worked with John Medler and others to come up with something in the future that's maybe a little bit more interesting.
Okay, the other ones I'd written, compost.
In terms of the waste, the composting figures, it's wholly dependent on the weather. So if you have a wet period, you'll have a lot of weight. If you have a dry period, you won't have much weight. So it's a bit of a strange indicator. It's one that we have to collect because we have to report it. But it really completely depends on the weather. So it's really difficult to say that you've had a good year or a bad year, or it could be better or it could be worse, because it might rain for the next 2 months. That might make a big difference.
Should have gone up last year then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's purely the compost that we're collecting on the green waste.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other ones I've got, business recovery, I've written was.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I think there was just a question about was the Councillor Makinson Sanders about why we weren't able to collect the grant data.
Yeah, I just wondered why.
I'll find out about that, because it may well just be capacity in terms of kind of gathering the data together, but I'll find out for you. And then there was
I declare an interest, really.
Yeah. And then sorry, Councillor McNally, I didn't quite catch your question on the green waste. Was that in terms of income from green waste?
Yeah, in terms of the income had gone up, and I was just intrigued to know whether that sort of increase was the same as the increase last year, whether we've seen a higher increase in the people subscribing to the collection service.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure what we would do every year is, as you're aware, in terms of setting the budget, is we in the previous year, obviously when we are setting the budget, we will do an estimate of what we think income will be or expenditure will be. And then when we report back to you, we report based on what we originally estimated the income might be. So what it will mean is, in actual fact, in terms of what we anticipated the income to be, it's slightly above that. And I think on the whole, green waste income is fairly steady. So there haven't, as far as I'm aware, been any kind of big increases in the amount of income we get from green waste. But we obviously have got slightly more in than we anticipated that we would last year. So that's all it's saying, really.
Yeah, I mean, well, it just, 66,000. Is it £40 per bin?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fair few households that subscribe.
Yeah,
extra to it, sort of thing.
It may, but it's not necessarily. I mean, I can find some more detail for you, but it's not necessarily extra. So we might have anticipated that, based on history, that some people might stop their collection of green waste. So we'll have done a bit of we'll have set the baseline on maybe a bit of attrition rate of where people might drop out, and then probably what we found is actually not many people have dropped out of the services we thought they might do, or there might have been a slight increase. But yeah, I'm happy to have a chat with Vic and Nick on that and get a little bit more information on it.
Okay, thank you. And the business outcomes, that's sort of tied to the business recovery, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll just check on where we are with those indicators.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's covered all the questions so far. Councillor Matthews, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I do apologise. I've had about 6 deliveries, so I've been up and down like a blooming yo-yo. But I just wanted to really pick up on something that Councillor Mossop touched on, going back to page 44, about enabling the supply of homes that meet the needs and aspirations. I've had a few notices served in the area for enforcement on some of the quality of the housing on our coastal strip. I've also been very surprised living in like Sutton-on-Sea with our wonderful Grey Pound and, wonderful people, to find that we do have quite a lot of pensioner poverty, and certainly doing deliveries of the food bank. I've been very surprised about some of the quality of the homes, which are almost shack-like behind the dunes, which I think Councillor Mossop has mentioned. And, we've got quite old people living in these and the terrible conditions. And I just wonder, how we look at that and whether the drive of that is about bringing the properties up to a standard in energy efficiency. And I just think there's quite a bit of work to do on that, as these buildings are deteriorating, but people are still living in them. And we've got some, landlords that maybe aren't as caring as they should be. And I just don't know. I just want to flag that up and support Councillor Mossop, because he brought that up as well. And I think it is some work that we really need to be doing for certainly people on our coastal strip.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and I think that was something we did some very early work on, putting together a new housing strategy that was work on that was kind of halted by COVID. But I know it's an area that particularly Michelle Howard's keen to look at. And when we did that early work, I think some members were involved in some of the workshops that we held. But one of the issues was just generally poor quality housing in the district. And I think one of the challenges for us is a lot of that poor quality housing is actually privately owned. So, and that makes it more of a challenge. I think if you identify poor quality housing, or you've got concerns about tenants who are renting their accommodation, that needs to be reported into the council, because we can only really address some of those issues if people report it in. So if you've got specific concerns about specific properties, where you know that it's a tenant that's in there, then please do report that into housing standards.
It's almost a specific area. Yeah. I'm not going to list it here, but it is the section that clearly was like holiday bungalows that are now got permanent residency, and they're living in prefabricated buildings, like a whole village.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's I could report individual things, and there are one or two I have done, but it's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it's going to take an approach that looks after the tenants, because the landlords will just evict them and then just let them to somebody else. So it is quite a sensitive thing, but we could tackle it in a way that is proactive and helpful, but I don't know particularly how that is.
I mean, the team is the housing standards team is really proactive in terms of kind of going out there. And it is kind of one of the areas where you will see us taking action against landlords quite regularly. But I take your point. I think also just to remind ourselves that it is one of the priorities that was identified in the corporate strategy. So it absolutely needs to be an area that we need to put in some focus on. And it's probably one of the areas, as I say, we need to kind of reinstigate that work around the housing strategy so that we can set some priorities in that area. So I'll take that back and we'll have a look at some timescales with that.
I know that the team have been very active in my area because I keep getting emails through telling me of the notices that they've served, and they've been very active and doing a lot of work in Horncastle at any rate. So presumably they can't do everywhere at one go, but I do think they are working quite hard, and hopefully they'll get to some of the areas you're talking about. Councillor Makinson-Saunders, you were next.
Thank you. I was just going to say, it isn't just a private landlord. I had a chap phone me up a few weeks ago about Platform, which I think is whatever our housing association lot is under now. And it's all to do with, they award a contract to local builders to go out and do stuff, who then subcontract to somebody else who will only do the bare minimum, and things aren't getting done properly. And this poor man who phoned me up wasn't in my ward, so I helped him as far as I could and told him where he ought to be going. And honestly, it was pitiful. I felt so sorry for the poor man. And that was a housing association that aren't doing it properly. But it was all down to subcontractors only doing what they were subcontracted to do. And really, Platform need to be addressing how they give their work out as well. So it isn't just the private jobbies as well. So it's public ones too.
Yeah, we meet quite regularly with Platform, so we'll feed that back.
Yeah, I can send you the details if you're desperate.
Sorry, thank you. That would be helpful. Councillor Parkin, you're next.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to hear what Alison is saying about the housing. I think and Helen as well. And I think we can all probably think of areas of our patches area of our wards and divisions where we do have real issues. I totally agree with Jill that housing association is just as much a factor as private landlords. In some areas in Laos, definitely more so. Yeah. To be honest, I do wonder, Fiona, in terms of looking at future scrutiny topics, whether there might be some merit in a panel on this in the future, so that we can understand both the work of our teams, but also kind of the relationship between housing associations, private landlords, and what actual mechanisms we've got to intervene, but also how we move forward in terms of better quality housing, and the control that we can have on that in terms of as places are built. Because I think we've got some really, really, really old housing association stock, really old. We certainly have in Louth. And as I say, it just might be a good one for the future.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've got a call out at the moment for topic suggestions, so now would be a good time to submit that if you thought it was appropriate. I haven't got any more speakers at the minute, so we'll move on to the second section and probably the remainder of the report. So page 53 onwards, because Councillor Mossop, I think you said you got questions on the rest of the report. Councillor Mossop?
Yeah, I have actually. In terms of, I think this is a good way of doing it now because these are the sort of financial ones. It was just a quick question on page 63 about the Public Works Loan Board. There was 20 mil taken out in 2018, the end of 2018, before my time. And I just wondered what that was for, whether it was a specific item, you know, when we've actually got reserves and the like to finance our programme. I do worry a little bit about, although Public Works Loan Board interest is you know, long term and pretty reasonable. I do worry about saddling our next generation, including my 22-year-old, who with debt. And the other thing I was going to ask about was the claims made for in terms of insurance on page 65, which was I'll just get it whilst I'm looking up. Yeah, but I was just curious to know what they were for and how much, really. Obviously, that's research that needs to be looked at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Alison, can you answer either of those, or do you want to come back? Having
I can.
I mean, the loans were agreed by council, so all council's aware of the loans, and the decision and the justification for it was made at full council.
I'm not. Yeah.
All right.
Can I explain it for Alison? Because the loans were taken out to buy property bonds as an investment for this council to bring in income, so that would support the vulnerable. So that's what that money was borrowed at, a very advantageous rate. It wasn't it wasn't to actually spend on per se. It was to invest, bring in greater returns, and it's an investment over 50 years. So it's not just something that is for tomorrow, it's for 50 years hence. So I don't think our children will necessarily need to be too worried about that, because at the end of the day, they're not inventing any more land, and property should, over 50 years, increase in value.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's really helpful, Chairman, to hear that. As I say, I wasn't there at the time, and it is a different thing, but it does mean that we actually need to keep a weathered eye on those property bonds to see that they are making money for us.
Yeah, that's I was going to say that's followed really closely by the Audit and Governance Committee.
And it is here, yeah. So I appreciate that, and thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Jill. Your memory is better than mine. The other one, insurance risk, Alison, did you want to, the insurance that Councillor Mossop asked about?
Yeah, so Councillor Mossop, was it you were just interested in what kind of claims we have?
Well, no, they've been they're in a table 8, public liability. There was one claim, one was employer's liability, and one was a motor one, which I'm sure was a bump and a scratch. But I'm just curious to know what people are claiming for under public liability, whether it's our parks, whether they're you know, properly maintained, or was it a maintenance issue or something like that? It would just be interesting to dig a little bit deeper. That's all.
Yeah, see what we can. I don't know that information off the top of my head, but
I realise that.
Find it out yet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I haven't got anybody else wishing to speak. If not, thank you very much for that. We'll move on then to item 10, which is really just to confirm that we have got a date for the session that we agreed to have. Elaine, off the top of my head, I haven't got my diary in front of me. Well, can you remember the date?
It was the 4th of December, I believe, in the morning around 10 o'clock. I think an appointment was sent to all members that's in there. Probably need to forward it on to Councillor Newman, since she's a new member. But yeah, it was put in members' diaries. Lovely, thank you. If you could forward that to Councillor Newman. And we have set up a date for Alison, Elaine and myself to look at the format of that day. And also we have agreed, because there was mention earlier in the agenda, I think by Councillor Harrison, and we're aware that Councillor Newman has joined us new. So we were proposing to do, or for Alison to do a short session at the beginning of that
session, just sort of looking at scrutiny and as a refresher for how scrutiny works. I think it was Councillor Mrs Harrison who'd asked in particular for a refresher. It won't be a long session, but it will be part of that that day on the 4th of December. So unless anybody's, Councillor Mossop, are you wanting to speak on that?
No, I'm not. Sorry. I should put my hand down now. I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on then to item 11, which is the overview and scrutiny recommendation tracker. And we'll do as we normally do and take it a page at a time. So, and I'll try and pick up the 2 late submissions that came through as we go through. So page 1, anybody want to speak on? Page 2.
Hang on a minute. Where are the? Oh, there. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There are different numbers. Yeah. Sorry, I was looking at the bottom of the page.
95 of the agenda.
Yeah.
I'm taking the numbers from the bottoms of the page as you turn them over.
Okay. Thank you.
Page 3.
For the landscape or.
Yeah.
Page 4. Page 5. Now, page 6, you did have sent out, Elaine did send out an update at the end of last week on the conservation area scrutiny panel. I hope everybody got that.
I don't remember seeing that either.
Elaine sent that out. I think it came out at the same time as Councillor Mrs Harrison's Health Committee report. I think it was on the same email. I've written it down as the 27th of October it came out. There's an email from Emily Wales. Now she's back from secondment picking up some of the issues.
I haven't seen that.
Okay, well,
can we go back to page 6, because I was concerned that market signage and things, a lot of these things have really gone into abeyance, because I do think a lot of capacity, and I totally understand why, has gone into the Towns Fund, and so a lot of stuff isn't being picked up, but hopefully with the Towns Fund money bids going in now, perhaps more effort might be put back into Vital and Viable.
Yeah. Okay, we'll pass that comment on. The conservation area, do you want, I'll email that out to you, Councillor Megginson Saunders, as well. Anybody have any comment on that? I mean, I know Emily, now she's back from secondment, is starting to pick up the conservation work again. I mean, I don't know whether the lockdown is going to affect people again. Alison, are people likely to be seconded again, do we think? Or
yeah, as I say, we're still waiting for guidance in terms of how we deal with clinically vulnerable. So, you know, those who were shielding, the government is saying they're not going to call them people who are shielding this time round, but they still want us to deliver pretty much the same service. So I think we're much better prepared for it this time round, and we can we'll get the wellbeing service has already been moved to 7 days a week immediately.
Wow.
We may well have to look at redeployment, but I'm fingers crossed hoping it's not on the same scale as it was previously.
Yeah.
Okay, well, no doubt you'll keep members informed as to what's happening on all that. Thank you. If there's nothing on that, again, pages 8 onwards, there was an email that came out yesterday with an update on the rough sleeping initiative scrutiny panel, because we haven't had responses on that, but we have now. Have you had that one? Has everybody had that one? There's several pages of that. Have you had that, Councillor Mekinson Saunders?
Well, I was just wondering because I've been looking at my emails every day and I haven't seen a lot of these, or perhaps I've just overlooked them. So I'll have to go. I can't take it off the screen to look. I'll look when we've stopped.
No. Okay,
If not,
well,
I'll let you know. Thank you.
Let me know, and because I've definitely had them all and I've printed them out, so I'll quite happy to forward anything that you haven't got. So I've written Rough Sleepers one here as well. Anybody got any questions or comments on that? If not, it was good to have an update on that and what was happening on that, because it's some time now since that went to full council. If nobody's got any more comments or questions on the tracker, we'll move on to item 12, which is the forward plan. Again, we'll take it a page at a time, and if you've got any issues, please stop me. Page 105, 106, 107, and 108. No, nobody got any issues on that. Right, so item 13 then is the date of the next meeting. And as we've said a few minutes ago, we've got the extra meeting on the 4th of December. Other than that, the next full meeting of the Overview Committee will be on Tuesday, the 15th of December. And unfortunately, I don't think the chairman's going to be able to provide mince pies this year.
I was wondering that.
Yeah.
Well, that's awful.
So I'm sorry about that.
You could do virtual mince pies, couldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
They might not taste so good though.
Oh, I'm game for anything. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we've heard that.
We know that.
Yeah. Okay, I think on
Thank
that
you.
note, I'll
Wait till the book comes out.